Have you ever woken up from a dream, maybe one that was just so vivid or completely bizarre, utterly nonsensical, and it just left you thinking, what was that all about?
Oh, absolutely. Those nightly stories we tell ourselves,
Yeah.
they can be funny or terrifying, sometimes just confusing, can't they?
Exactly, or even really profound. Well, for
hmm
centuries, people have been trying to figure out the mystery of dreams. Are they just random brain signals, like mental static?
Or could they be something more? That's the big question, isn't it?
Right. What if they're not just noise? What if dreams are actually a kind of secret language your brain is using, like talking to itself, maybe tapping into your unconscious mind?
It's such a profound experience, and it's universal. I mean, the fact that humans everywhere, throughout all of history, dream,
Mm-hmm.
that strongly suggests there's, something more going on than just pure chance.
Mm-hmm.
This whole idea that our sleeping mind is actually doing something purposeful, something meaningful,
Yeah.
it's incredibly compelling when you think about it.
Absolutely. And that's precisely what we're going to be diving into today on the deep dive.
Yeah.
We're basically going on a journey looking at over 100 years of thinking about dreams. We'll kick things off with Sigmund Freud, the giant figure who famously called dreams the royal road to the unconscious.
Can't talk about dreams without mentioning Freud.
Definitely not.
Mm.
Then we'll fast forward quite a bit into modern neuroscience and explore this really fascinating idea that our brains are essentially prediction machines, even while we're dreaming.
Which is a whole different way of looking at
It
it.
really is. And then we'll look at the surprising, maybe even uncanny similarities between dreaming and the kinds of experiences people report when using psychedelics.
Yeah, that connection is getting a lot of attention now.
It is. So it's going to be a fascinating ride exploring what our minds get up to when they sort of venture beyond our normal waking reality.
And our deep dive today, it's built on a really solid, rich foundation of sources. We're drawing from the classics, foundational texts like Freud's The Interpretation of Dreams, which is just huge.
Landmark, yeah.
Definitely. And then moving right through to cutting-edge research, so from PubMed Central, for instance, that explores how different theories of dreaming might actually be converging.
Oh, interesting. So bridging the old and the new.
Exactly. And we're even pulling in insights from contemporary psychological discussions, conversations happening right now that are trying to connect these diverse fields of psychoanalysis, neuroscience, sometimes fields that seem miles apart.
So it's a real cross-disciplinary look.
That's the goal, looking at one of the mind's greatest mysteries from multiple angles.
Okay. So our mission today in this deep dive is really to try and demystify dreams for you, our listener. I want to understand their hidden purpose, if there is one, and explore how our sleeping minds aren't just, switching off. They might actually be working quite hard, making sense of our waking lives, processing experiences, maybe even untangling those unresolved feelings we all seem to carry around.
Yeah, that background processing, that might be crucial.
Right. So we're going to take some pretty dense ideas, philosophical, neuroscientific, and really try to break them down, make them clear, understandable, with plenty of real-world analogies.
Make it accessible.
Exactly. Our goal is that you walk away feeling, well, definitely well-informed, but maybe even a little bit enlightened about your own nightly adventures in dreamland. Get ready for hopefully some serious aha moments about what your brain is actually doing every single night.
Sound like a plan?
Okay, let's start our journey. Let's step back in time, maybe to the turn of the 20th century. We need to talk about a name that's practically synonymous with psychology itself. Sigmund Freud.
Indeed. Can't avoid him here.
Right. So before Freud really came along, the scientific community largely dismissed dreams. A lot of scientists, and honestly, some people still feel this way today, they just saw dreams as meaningless. Random byproducts of brain activity during sleep, especially REM sleep.
Just neuronal noise, essentially, like static.
Exactly, like a computer glitch, no inherent message, no real significance, just stuff happening.
And that was often the view for centuries, wasn't it? Either dreams were these, like, divine messages, prophecies.
Right, the mystical side.
Or completely the opposite, just purely physiological stuff.
Yeah.
Mental leftovers from the day, maybe.
Yeah.
Flotsam and jetsam.
Yeah.
There wasn't much serious scientific curiosity about the content of dreams, mainly because the assumption was, well, there was no real content to find. It was just random images, fleeting sensations.
But here's where it gets, as you said, really interesting. This is where Freud just turns everything on its head.
Yeah.
He challenged this whole dismissive idea completely. He asserted that every single dream, no matter how nonsensical it seems, how fragmented, how quickly you forget, it carries profound meaning.
Every single one. That was the radical part.
Totally.
Yeah.
He believed dreams weren't random at all. He thought they stemmed directly from what he called the unconscious mind, this like vast hidden reservoir inside us.
Containing all the stuff we don't consciously deal with.
Right. Our deepest desires, our fears, those unresolved conflicts, maybe even traumas, things we just can't or won't acknowledge when we're awake.
This was just a truly revolutionary idea. I mean, it really shook the foundations of psychological thought at the time. Freud saw dreams not as noise, but as a direct line, a privileged pathway to that unconscious.
Your royal road.
Exactly. He believed they offered invaluable insight into what makes a person tick, revealing what was really going on beneath the surface of conscious awareness. And this dramatically shifted dreams, from the realm of the mystical or just pure biology into something that psychology could and should seriously investigate. He basically brought dreams into the scientific and therapeutic conversation, gave them legitimacy.
Think of it like this for a moment. Your dream isn't just that static on a TV screen, that random flickering.
Yeah.
Instead, imagine it's like a coded message, maybe an encrypted email, sent from a part of your mind you can't normally access directly when you're awake.
I like that analogy. Encrypted.
Right. It's designed, it's purposefully constructed, even if that design isn't immediately obvious or logical to your conscious waking self. And this idea, this core concept, became absolutely foundational for psychoanalysis.
It really did.
It moved dreams from something you just dismiss or maybe tell someone about casually to something to be deeply examined, interpreted, understood. It put dreams right at the heart of understanding human behavior, mental distress, the whole intricate working of the unconscious mind.
It essentially gave dreams a job, a very important job.
Exactly. Gave them a job. So if dreams are meaningful, what exactly is that job? Okay, let's unpack this next core Freudian concept. He proposed that maybe the primary function of dreams is what he called wish fulfillment.
Right. And this needs some clarification because it sounds simple, but it's not just about, dreaming you won the lottery.
Right, or getting to eat all the cake you want with no consequences. It's much more subtle and more powerful than that. It means dreams represent the unconscious desires, thoughts, motivations that our conscious mind actively represses.
Keeps hidden.
Yes. Why repress them? Because maybe these underlying wishes are too disturbing or too socially unacceptable or just too anxiety-provoking for us to consciously deal with in our waking lives.
That's such a crucial distinction. Our conscious mind, which Freud linked mainly with the ego, right? It's constantly working to maintain our self-image, follow social rules, keep us functioning in the world.
Keep things respectable.
Exactly. But underneath all that, the unconscious mind, what Freud called the id, this more primitive, instinct-driven part, still has its own powerful urges and needs bubbling away.
Yeah.
So dreams offer a kind of psychological safety valve, a safe space where these repressed desires can get some expression, even if it's distorted, symbolic, or disguised.
So they can be acknowledged somehow.
Precisely. Acknowledged by the psyche without directly threatening our waking sense of who we are or causing overwhelming distress. It's a way to let off steam, psychologically speaking.
Freud actually had this really powerful personal aha moment, an insight from his own dream that became a cornerstone for this whole theory. He called it the Irma dream.
Ah, yes, the famous Irma dream.
Right. So he'd been really worried about this patient, Irma. Her treatment wasn't going as well as he'd hoped, and he was feeling, a lot of guilt, maybe some self-blame about it.
Professional anxiety.
Totally. So in his dream, he meets Irma at a party, and he starts examining her. And as he does, suddenly this chemical formula flashes before his eyes, a formula for a drug that another doctor has supposedly given her. And in the dream, he realizes, her poor condition is caused by a dirty syringe used by this other doctor.
Oh, okay, so the blame shifts.
Exactly. And in his interpretation, his really profound interpretation of this, Freud saw it as a clear case of wish fulfillment. His unconscious mind wished that Irma's problems were not his fault.
Makes sense.
So the dream fulfilled that wish by putting the blame squarely onto someone else, relieving his own guilt and professional anxiety. And this really personal experience cemented his belief that dreams are fundamentally about fulfilling wishes.
Often wishes we can't consciously admit to, or that would be too painful to face head on when awake.
Exactly. So you can see this idea of wish fulfillment, it goes way beyond just literally getting what you want in a dream, like finding treasure or flying.
Yeah, it's not just fantasy wish list stuff.
No. It's about the mind finding a symbolic way, maybe a disguised way, to satisfy a deep-seated, often unconscious need or desire or emotional demand. Even if that satisfaction is just a sort of fleeting internal resolution within the dream itself.
Like a psychological negotiation happening internally.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. A negotiation. Okay, so how do these, often disturbing or unacceptable wishes get expressed in our dreams without causing too much anxiety or waking us up? Freud made this really key distinction between two layers of a dream. First, there's what he called the manifest content.
Right, the surface level.
Exactly. This is the actual story of the dream, the part you remember when you wake up, the people, the places, the actions, the events. It's like the movie playing in your head, the narrative you might tell someone.
What you'd write down in a dream journal.
Precisely. But then underneath that, buried deeper, lies the latent content.
The hidden stuff.
Yeah. This is the hidden, symbolic, unconscious meaning behind that surface story. It's the real script, the underlying message of the dream. It reveals those repressed desires, wishes, conflicts we were just talking about.
And the key thing is, this latent content is never just presented directly. It's always coded, symbolized, disguised within that manifest dream. It's the secret meaning that needs decoding.
So the big question then becomes, why the disguise? Why doesn't the unconscious just, lay it all out there for us?
Right. Why the coding?
Freud proposed this fascinating process he called dream work. He argued that the mind actively censors or transforms the potentially disturbing, anxiety-ridden latent content into the less threatening, often bizarre, manifest content.
So it's an active transformation process.
Yes, and this dream work, it serves a really vital psychological function.
Right.
It reduces anxiety, it protects our sleep, lets us keep sleeping without being totally overwhelmed or traumatized by our deepest, most primal unconscious stuff.
Imagine if your rawest fears or desires just appeared, uncensored, every night.
You'd never sleep. You'd dread going to bed.
Exactly. It's an incredibly clever defense mechanism, really. The mind protecting itself from its own raw, sometimes difficult truths.
Think of it like this. The manifest content, the dream story you remember. It's like an elaborate costume, maybe all the stage props in a play. They're designed to distract, entertain, present a sort of palatable surface.
The performance.
But the latent content, that's the actor's true feelings, their hidden motivations, their private script, hiding underneath that costume. It influences the performance, but it's not overtly revealed to the audience, and the audience here is your conscious self.
It's like a masterclass in psychological subterfuge, all happening automatically while you sleep, supposedly for your own benefit.
Yeah, a nightly disguise artist. So how exactly does this dream work happen? How does the unconscious manage to transform those deep, maybe troubling, latent desires into the sometimes weird but generally less threatening manifest dream? Freud identified several really clever techniques the unconscious uses. Let's try and break these down step by step to get a handle on this nightly transformation process.
Yeah, these mechanisms are absolutely key to understanding how dreams work, according to Freud. They explain how this raw, complex emotional material gets repackaged sometimes into nonsense, seemingly for our sleeping consciousness. It's like internal translation and obfuscation.
Okay, first up is condensation. This is basically like compressing a really big file on your computer, but doing it with ideas and emotions.
Hacking things together.
Exactly. Multiple ideas, images, memories, even different people can get combined, squeezed into a single compact dream object or event. So for example, if you dream about a specific house, it might not just be about that building. It could be a condensation of, say, your worries about security and your concerns about your public image and maybe unresolved feelings about your childhood home, all rolled into one symbolic house.
It's incredibly efficient, psychologically speaking, packing a lot of meaning and emotional weight into one symbol or scenario, like a very dense metaphor.
Totally. It's the brain being economical in the dream state. Streamlining information, creating these composite images that hold several meanings at once.
And that density is a hallmark of what Freud called primary process thinking, which we'll probably get into more later. It's very associative, non-linear, letting multiple layers of meaning coexist.
Okay, next mechanism. Displacement. This one is fascinating. This is where the emotional significance, the sort of affective charge, gets shifted.
Move somewhere else.
Right. Moved from an important, often threatening object or person to a less important, less threatening one. Freud had this classic patient story that illustrates it perfectly.
Okay, let's hear it.
He described a patient who intensely resented his sister-in-law. Really didn't like her, but couldn't consciously admit it, maybe because of social pressure or family dynamics.
Right, unacceptable feelings.
So, this patient then dreams of strangling a small white dog.
Oh, okay.
The powerful anger, that unacceptable wish to harm, was psychologically displaced from the sister-in-law onto this innocent dog. If he dreamed of actually hurting his sister-in-law, the guilt and anxiety might have just woken him right up.
Too confronting.
Exactly. So the unconscious, through displacement, protected him by swapping the target. The anger got processed, but indirectly attached to a less threatening symbol.
So displacement allows the strong emotion to be felt and maybe worked through, but it bypasses a direct confrontation with the original scary source. It's like a psychological deflection, shielding the dreamer.
Yeah, redirecting the heat onto a safer target within the dream. Clever stuff.
Very.
Then there's symbolization. This is probably what most people think of when they hear Freudian dream interpretation, right?
Yeah, the idea of dream dictionaries and things.
Exactly. This is where a repressed idea or a wish is represented through symbols. So, for instance, dreaming of climbing a ladder might symbolize ambition or a desire for success. However, and this is a really crucial point that Freud himself was very clear about,
Yes.
he did not believe in universal dream dictionaries where, a ladder always means ambition for everyone, everywhere.
That's such a vital distinction and often misunderstood. While, sure, some symbols might pop up frequently because of shared culture or maybe even archetypes, Freud strongly emphasized that dream symbols are deeply, profoundly personal. Their real meaning can only be figured out through the individual dreamer's unique associations, their personal history, their current emotional state.
He actually told this great story about a patient who, after dreaming of a wriggling fish, immediately said, "Ah, that must be a penis."
Right. Sounds stereotypically Freudian, doesn't it?
Totally. But that's exactly what Freud warned against jumping to conclusions. Through careful exploration, using free association, it turned out the fish was actually connected to her Pisces mother.
Oh, interesting connection.
Yeah, a mother who was apparently quite disapproving of her being in therapy. So this anecdote isn't just like a quirky story, it's a critical lesson. Dream symbols are like personal hieroglyphs.
Unique to the dreamer.
Their true meaning isn't universal or prepackaged in some book. It's always rooted deep in the dreamer's unique life, their experiences, their personal associations. That's what makes real dream interpretation so complex, but also so personal and potentially insightful.
It really highlights the individuality of the unconscious. You need the dreamer's input. You can't just impose an external meaning.
Absolutely. Okay, final mechanism. Secondary elaboration. This is like the finishing touch, maybe the editing pass that happens after the initial dream work is done.
Tidying up.
Sort of. The unconscious mind, or maybe even the semi-conscious mind as you're waking up, tries to string together the dream's often disjointed, bizarre images and events into a more logical-seeming, coherent storyline.
Trying to make it make sense.
Yeah. This process actually further obscures the original, raw, latent content. It makes the manifest dream seem more believable, less chaotic than it really is underneath. It's the brain trying to impose some kind of order on the underlying, well, maybe chaos, even if the resulting story is still pretty weird.
It's like creating a narrative facade, right? Providing a veneer of structure to the associative primary process thinking underneath makes the dream feel more like a story we can tell ourselves or tell others. It looks like just a random jumble of images. And that helps conceal its true, maybe unsettling origins even more. It's the brain presenting a sort of finished product.
Okay, so we've seen how incredibly clever the mind is at disguising its true messages through this complex dream work. But if our unconscious is such a master code maker, how do we ever crack that code? How do we get to the latent content underneath?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is, and this is where Freud introduced a truly revolutionary tool, one that's still incredibly influential in therapy today. His method of free association.
This method was just groundbreaking because it fundamentally shifted where the meaning comes from. Instead of the analyst being the expert who tells the patient what their dream meant.
Right, the authority figure.
It put the individual's own unique inner world right at the center. It recognized that only the dreamer holds the key to unlocking their personal symbols.
The method itself, the core instruction, was surprisingly simple, though it turned out to be incredibly powerful in practice. Instead of the therapist interpreting, Freud invited patients to just say whatever came to mind in relation to each individual element of the dream.
Just follow the thoughts.
Exactly, that's free association. The key instruction was relax your critical thinking, suspend judgment, and don't hold anything back. No matter how unpleasant or trivial or ridiculous or seemingly irrelevant the thought seemed, the rule was just say it out loud.
The whole point was to try and bypass the conscious mind's usual filters and censorship. Our waking minds are constantly editing, judging, organizing thoughts to fit reality.
Making things logical.
By deliberately suspending that censorship, Freud believed people could access the underlying, often repressed material that was associated with the dream's elements. It was about letting the unconscious speak through this chain of seemingly random connections.
And why does it work? Why is it so powerful? By following these apparently random trains of thought, one association sparks another, then another, like a psychological chain reaction.
Yeah.
Freud believed you could gently sidestep those conscious defenses and eventually uncover the underlying latent content. You could find the repressed wishes or conflicts the dream is really about.
It's like a journey into the hidden corners of your own mind, guided by your own internal compass, revealing surprising connections your unconscious makes, ultimately showing you what was previously hidden.
It works because it allows those repressed ideas, which often don't have a neat, direct cognitive label, to sort of bubble up in an associated symbolic form. The pieces of the manifest dream, the images or feelings, they act like starting points, like prompts.
Like breadcrumbs.
Yeah, breadcrumbs, leading you back to the deeper unconscious connections and revealing the true emotional landscape underneath. Okay, we've spent a good chunk of time with Freud, which is essential. But now let's jump forward, way forward into the 21st century and try to bridge his groundbreaking ideas with modern neuroscience.
Right, connecting the couch to the lab, so to speak.
Exactly. So if we think big picture, Freud actually believed our fundamental instincts, or tribe, as he called them in German, were deeply rooted in biology. His argument basically was that our big developmental task as humans is learning how to effectively meet these biological needs and manage our powerful emotional demands out there in the world.
And this connects really nicely, actually, to a fundamental biological principle, homeostasis.
Okay, what's homeostasis again? Just simply.
Homeostasis is simply the biological drive all living things have to maintain a stable internal environment. Think about your body constantly regulating its temperature or blood sugar or fluid levels without you even thinking about it.
Right, keeping things balanced.
Exactly. And in the psychological realm, our feelings of pleasure when our needs are met and unpleasure, which is Freud's term for emotional pain or discomfort, when needs are unmet, they act like a built-in value system.
Like internal signals.
Crucial signals, yeah. They tell us when to approach something in the world to satisfy a need or when to withdraw to avoid discomfort or danger. It's all in service of maintaining that stable internal balance.
Freud initially thought there was something even deeper than just seeking pleasure, didn't he? This state he called the nirvana principle.
He did. He talked about this idea of a kind of ultimate state of no needs, no tension, no demands on the mind, a perfect stillness.
Like zero stimulation.
Kind of. But modern understanding generally doesn't see these as two separate principles. It tends to view the pleasure principle as ultimately serving the homeostasis principle. That ideal state, that nirvana, is simply when all our fundamental needs are met and the mind can genuinely be at rest. It's about achieving balance, not eliminating needs entirely.
Okay, that makes sense. So from this biological homeostatic perspective, the psychoanalytic ego, that part of our mind dealing with reality, making decisions,
The mediator.
its main job is essentially all about predictions. Its core task is constantly learning from past experiences to accurately predict how to satisfy our needs in the future.
And if those predictions are bad,
Well, to the extent that we form predictions that are inadequate, that don't work, that consistently lead us astray, we suffer. We feel that unpleasure, that distress. So the brain is constantly working, mostly unconsciously, to optimize its predictions, to minimize suffering and maximize that feeling of balance and well-being.
so even our sense of self is tied into this prediction game.
This whole idea of the brain constantly making predictions is really central to a powerful and increasingly influential modern framework in computational neuroscience. It's called predictive processing, or sometimes predictive coding, often just PP.
Right. And what's so fascinating here is that this model views the brain not as just a passive receiver of information, like an input-output machine.
Yeah, not just taking stuff in.
No. It sees it as a constantly active, hierarchically structured inference system, basically like a detective, always trying to figure out the world based on clues and prior knowledge.
It's a really unifying framework, isn't it, for understanding how we perceive, how we imagine, how we make sense of everything around us. The core idea, which is kind of revolutionary when you first grasp it, is that your brain isn't just passively waiting for sensory info to hit it. Instead, it's actively generating expectations. It's making guesses, or priors as they call them, about what sensory information it will receive next.
And its main goal.
Its primary goal, its main mission, is to constantly minimize prediction error. That's just the fancy term for the mismatch, the gap between what it expected to happen and what actually happened based on sensory input. It's always trying to reduce surprise, essentially. Get things right.
I love the analogy often used for this. Imagine your brain is like this relentless scientist running a continuous experiment every single moment of your life. It forms a hypothesis. Those are its priors about what will happen next, what it will see, hear, feel. Then it tests that hypothesis against the incoming data from your senses.
And if the data doesn't match?
If the data doesn't fit the hypothesis, boom, that's a prediction error. And what does any good scientist do when their hypothesis is proven wrong?
They change the hypothesis, update it.
Exactly. They update their hypothesis to be more accurate next time. Your brain does this automatically, constantly, incredibly fast, all day long to better navigate and survive in this really complex world. It's learning and adapting constantly.
And this predictive system, it operates with a highly hierarchical structure, right? Like a company org chart.
Precisely. You can think of the lower layers of the brain, down at the bottom of the hierarchy, as predicting the very fine-grained, immediate details, like the precise texture of an object you're touching or the exact pitch of a sound.
The raw data level.
Kind of. While the higher layers, sitting up at the top, they predict more abstract, generalized, long-term features. Things like, am I safe in this environment? Or what's the overall context of this social situation? Or even, what are my goals right now?
So information flows both up from the senses and down as predictions.
Exactly. There's this constant dialogue between the levels. Sensory data flows up, signaling errors, and predictions flow down, trying to explain away that sensory data.
And what's really clever, apparently, is that the brain can dynamically adjust how much it listens to these prediction errors, right?
Yes, it adjusts the volume based on certainty. For instance, if the sensory input is noisy or ambiguous, like trying to see in a really dark room or hear someone in a loud place.
Yeah, where the data isn't clear.
Right. In those cases, your brain actually relies more on its higher-level priors, on what it expects to see or hear based on past experience and the context. It trusts its internal model more, and it relies less on the unreliable, noisy, low-level input it's actually getting.
So it fills in the gaps based on its best guess.
Exactly. It creates coherence based on its predictions. This constant dynamic adjustment of what information to prioritize helps explain how we maintain a stable perception of the world, even when the information coming in is incomplete or ambiguous, is how we make sense of uncertainty.
Okay, so if our brain is this incredible, non-stop prediction machine when we're awake, constantly refining its models of reality, what happens when we fall asleep? How does this predictive processing model apply to dreaming?
Well, the model suggests that this same fundamental hierarchical prediction process is still very much running during sleep and dreaming. The brain doesn't just switch off its core operating system.
It just runs differently.
Exactly. It enters a different mode with some crucial modifications.
What are the key differences then?
Well, the most obvious ones are, first, a significant lack of external sensory input. Our eyes are closed. We're generally not hearing or touching the outside world in the same way.
Right, the input stream is mostly cut off.
And secondly, there's an absence of motor action. Thanks mostly to REM sleep paralysis, we're not physically moving or interacting with the world based on our internal experience.
Okay, so less input, no output. What does that mean for the prediction process?
Well, because those low-level sensory priors, those expectations about fine-grained immediate sensory data from the outside world are essentially offline, or at least extremely unreliable. The brain is forced to rely much more heavily on its middle to high-level priors. These are the more abstract, generalized beliefs, memories, expectations about how the world works, rather than specific real-time sensory details.
So it's building the dream world mainly from its internal library, its memories and expectations.
Pretty much. It's constructing a virtual world primarily from its internal models, its stored knowledge, its previous learning, rather than being driven by direct, ongoing external input.
And this heavy reliance on internal models, does that explain why dreams often feel, well, weird?
It helps explain it, yes. It helps explain why dreams often lack the sort of fine-grained perceptual details and depth of waking life. While dreams can feel incredibly vivid emotionally, visually they might be strange colors off, faces distorted, physics totally broken.
Yeah, flying dreams, things morphing.
Exactly. The brain is basically generating a virtual reality based on its internal models, its stored associations and expectations, rather than being constrained by precise external sensory data. The vividness comes from internal generation, not external reception. It's like running a simulation based purely on stored data and algorithms.
Okay, so this raises a really important question then. If the brain is constantly predicting and refining its world model, what specific role do dreams play in that whole process, according to this PP view?
That's a key area of research and theory. Some compelling theories propose that dreaming functions like a highly sophisticated virtual reality simulator for the brain.
A simulator, how so?
It allows the brain to test its generative model of the world, its internal simulation capabilities. It can simulate threatening situations or important social scenarios, or maybe just completely novel experiences. And in doing so, it can update its priors, refine its predictions without any real-world consequences. It's a safe space to practice.
Like running what-if scenarios.
Exactly. This safe space simulation helps us adapt our behavior, refine our predictions for waking life, maybe prepare us emotionally or cognitively for future challenges we might face. Makes us more resilient.
It's like an offline training ground.
Precisely. In this low-stakes virtual environment, the brain can experiment with different scenarios, test out various internal responses, maybe find creative solutions, and refine its predictive skills in a totally risk-free setting.
So this self-correction mechanism happening every night.
It could be absolutely vital for adaptation, for learning, and for our ongoing psychological and emotional development. It's where we might be practicing for life without even knowing it.
Okay, let's dive even deeper now, back into the unconscious mind itself. But looking at how modern neuropsychoanalysis is building on and sort of updating Freud's original framework.
Right, bringing brain science into the conversation about the unconscious.
Exactly. There's a key figure here, Mark Solms, who's really prominent in this field of neuropsychoanalysis. He offers a neurobiologically informed model that gives us a contemporary lens on Freud's ideas. And in his view, the unconscious isn't just one big, murky thing.
No, he sees it as more complex.
Right. He thinks it consists of various distinct functional subsystems, each doing its own job.
And for our discussion on dreams, Solms' concept of repressed priors, RPs, is particularly relevant and interesting.
Okay, repressed priors. What does that actually mean? It sounds complicated.
It does, but let's break it down. He defines them as prematurely formed, maladaptive automatizations of infantile predictions.
Whoa, okay, still sounds complicated. Simpler terms.
Chuckles. Right, basically, think of them as bad habits of prediction. They're ingrained, often unhelpful ways of anticipating things or reacting to things that got formed very early in life, probably when we faced a problem that seemed totally unsolvable or overwhelming back then.
Like outdated coping mechanisms that got stuck.
Exactly. Coping mechanisms formed with a child's limited understanding that became fixed, automatic, and maybe unhelpful later in life.
Okay, so what's the problem with having these repressed priors, these old prediction habits?
Well, the core issue is that they constantly generate prediction error signals. Remember, prediction errors from the PP model.
Yeah, the mismatch between expectation and reality.
Right. With RPs, these errors manifest as feelings. We feel these signals, often subconsciously, as a persistent sense of unpleasure, that nagging discomfort, anxiety, frustration, maybe even a diffuse sadness that we can't quite put our finger on.
But you can't just think your way out of it.
That's the crucial, frustrating part. They cannot be easily thought about or consciously verbalized because they often lack a clear cognitive representation. They're not neat thoughts or memories you can just recall and analyze. They got repressed, pushed deep into the unconscious, precisely because facing them directly would have been too overwhelming for our conscious minds back then, or even now.
Okay, let me try an analogy. It's like having a faulty navigation system in your car. That's your brain, right?
Okay, yeah.
And this system keeps giving you the wrong directions for solving a specific recurring life problem. You feel that constant simmering frustration, that's the unpleasure,
Mm-hmm.
but the faulty programming is buried so deep in the car's core system that you can't access it. You don't know why it's giving bad directions, let alone how to fix it. That's kind of like an RP.
That's a really good analogy. A fundamental, often unconscious glitch that causes suffering but seems beyond conscious understanding or repair.
And why repressed? Why did the brain bury these faulty predictions in the first place?
Well, this automatization, this becoming a fixed, unconscious habit, likely happened because a better, more adaptive solution just couldn't be found at the time, probably during early childhood when our coping skills were still developing.
Mm.
And actively, consciously trying to grapple with such an overwhelming, seemingly unsolvable problem would simply flood the brain's working memory, making it impossible to function day to day. So repression, in a way, is protective. It pushes the impossible problem aside so the brain can deal with things it can solve right now.
A necessary evil, maybe? Okay, so we have Swam's repressed priors. Now let's bring in another perspective that actually lines up remarkably well but comes at it from a slightly different angle. This is Ursula Moser's psychodynamic dream generation model.
Right, another model trying to bridge psychoanalysis and cognitive psychology.
Yeah, and she introduces this concept of conflictual complexes,
These
CC.
conflictual complexes. How does she see dreams working with these?
Moser's model suggests that dreams are often triggered by what she calls day residues.
Ah, leftovers from the day.
Sort of, but not just random bits. They are usually current concerns, recent experiences, maybe subtle emotional cues from your waking life that unconsciously reactivate these deeper unresolved conflicts or problems, the CCs that are stored away in long-term memory.
So it's like a present-day event poking an old bruise.
Exactly. The day residue is like the spark that ignites the sleeping embers of an old unresolved conflict.
Okay. And the dream's purpose, then, in her model?
Its core function is to actively work to resolve these conflictual complexes. It does this within a simulated micro-world, the dream itself.
A safe space again.
Right. And unlike waking life, the dream state seems to have fewer restrictions on our memory system capacity. This allows for important consolidation processes, deeper associative connections to be made, giving the dream a unique ability to process and attempt to solve these deep-seated issues.
So the dream isn't just reflecting the conflict. It's actively trying to do something about it.
That's the idea. It's actively, purposively working on something crucial.
So what are these conflictual complexes, more specifically?
Moser describes them as bundles of prototypical affective microprocesses. PAMs. Okay, that sounds technical again.
Yeah, break that down.
Think of PAMs as foundational emotional patterns, often rooted in significant, maybe even traumatic early experiences. These complexes, the CCs, contain unbound affective information.
Unbound feelings.
Yeah, like raw, powerful feelings, emotions, memories that are all interconnected but are blocked from conscious memory. And crucially, they're very difficult to manage, modulate, or resolve when we're awake. They're like these unresolved emotional knots, these psychological burdens that are often the underlying source of ongoing suffering or distress.
Okay, so they're like pockets of unresolved emotional history.
That's a good way to put it. And the dream's search for a solution to these complexes, this internal problem solving, isn't random. It's guided by two fundamental principles, according to Moser.
Which are?
First, the security principle, which reflects our deep, intrinsic human need for safety, protection, stability.
Makes sense.
And second, the involvement principle, which represents our equally powerful wish for connection, belonging, engagement with others.
Ah, safety and connection. Basic needs.
Exactly. So at its heart, the dream is trying to solve these deep emotional problems in a way that ultimately makes us feel safer and more connected, fulfilling those fundamental human needs.
Okay, now here's where these modern theories, Psalms, RPs, and Moser CCs really start to converge in a fascinating and, I think, quite powerful way.
Yeah, the overlap is striking.
Our sources propose that these two concepts, repressed priors and conflictual complexes, are actually not entirely separate things. They might be two different, yet complementary descriptions of the same underlying psychological entity.
Like looking at the same mountain from two different sides.
Exactly. Two sides of the same coin, seen through slightly different theoretical lenses, one more neurocognitive Psalms, one perhaps more psychodynamic and rooted in effective patterns, Moser.
And what's really fascinating here, maybe a profound takeaway for understanding the unconscious, is that both theories suggest something crucial about dreams.
Which is?
That these deep-seated emotional needs, these unbound effects from Moser or the unpleasure signals from Solms RPs,
Yeah.
they can actually become accessible. They can be experienced, maybe indirectly, within dreams or similar altered states.
So the dream opens a door.
It seems so. They might not show up directly or literally, but maybe through these affect-laden symbols, these emotionally charged images or scenarios that allow for processing and, crucially, maybe eventual insight.
Right. It's like the dream state creates this special cognitive environment where the usual barriers and defenses of our waking mind are lowered significantly. So if we revisit the purpose of dreams through this combined lens, they become this unique cognitive safe house, or maybe even, like you hinted at earlier, a sort of built-in therapy session.
An internal therapist.
Maybe. In this space, those deeply buried emotional wounds, your repressed priors or conflictual complexes, can finally be re-examined. They can be approached with alternative solutions, allowing for that classic Freudian wish fulfillment, satisfying the underlying need, and potentially even granting conscious access to these previously walled-off feelings upon waking.
So it's an internal process of self-negotiation, maybe even profound healing, potentially happening every single night.
That's the implication. The dream offers this simulated reality where the potential outcomes of these unresolved internal conflicts can be explored. New predictive pathways, new ways of responding can be tested without the constraints, the social risks, the real-world dangers of waking life.
It's a dynamic, active process of psychological self-repair and adaptation, constantly working towards greater emotional balance and understanding. Your brain is essentially running scenarios, trying to make you more resilient for the future.
Okay, but this raises that important question again. How? How does the dream state specifically allow this unique kind of processing to happen? What's going on in the brain to create this safe house for our unconscious baggage?
Right. What's the mechanism?
Well, Freud himself gave us a foundational concept here. He described primary process thinking as this associative, non-rational, kind of primitive cognitive style.
Very different from waking thought.
Totally different from the ordered, logical, rational, secondary process thinking that dominates our waking minds. Dreams, Freud argued, are primarily generated in this primary process space where the normal rules of logic, time, and physics just don't really apply.
And modern neuroscience actually offers some backing for this, providing a potential neurobiological basis. For instance, the same dopaminergic seeking system in the brain.
Okay, what does the seeking system do?
It's involved in motivation, exploration, curiosity, pursuing goals. It's highly active when we're awake and exploring the world. But interestingly, it's also active during sleep.
Even though we're not physically seeking anything.
Right. But with minimal external sensory input during sleep, the brain is kind of freed up. It might use this seeking energy internally to explore internal states, maybe to minimize complexity or resolve strong emotional reactions that might otherwise wake us up. It's a way for the brain to process internal demands and drive towards satisfaction without external distractions.
Okay. And the hypothesis is that in dreams, our usual ego control, that conscious, rational part that keeps us in check,
The executive
on
threat.
their typical secondary defenses, they significantly weaken. They relax their grip.
The guard comes down.
Exactly. And this weakening allows the prediction error signal from the repressed prior, that nagging feeling of unpleasure or anxiety we talked about, to be felt more directly, maybe closer to the unmet emotional demand it truly represents. It's less filtered, less disguised.
Allowing a more direct, though perhaps symbolic, confrontation with the underlying issue.
Right. Now, on a neurobiological level, one really fascinating explanation involves something called DMN-MTL decoupling.
Okay, break down those acronyms. DMN, MTL.
Yeah.
These-
Right. DMN is the brain's default mode network. Think of it as often linked to our sense of self, autobiographical memory, mind-wandering, self-reflection, kind of the brain's CEO for me.
Okay, and MTL.
NTL is the medial temporal lobe, which is a crucial memory hub, vital for forming and retrieving memories, especially episodic ones.
Got it. So DMN, MTL decoupling means?
It means the DMN, the CEO, might loosen its usual tight control over the MTL, the memory hub, during dreams. The CEO steps back a bit.
Okay, and what does that allow?
This decoupling might allow those raw, affective impulses, our emotions and feelings, to more freely activate associatively connected memories in a bottom-up way. So emotions can drive memory connections more freely without as much top-down control from the self network. This could lead to those rich, sometimes strange, emotionally driven dream narratives.
Ah, so emotions get to pick the memories more freely.
That's one way to think about it. And what's really intriguing and directly contributes to the unique, often bizarre nature of dreams is something called generative freedom.
Generative freedom.
Yeah. During dreams, there seems to be a decreased precision weighting of our high-level priors. Remember those? Our strong, deeply entrenched beliefs about reality, about how the world must work.
Right, the brain's core assumptions.
The dream state seems to turn down the volume or the certainty associated with those strong beliefs. It reduces their restrictive control.
Okay, like loosening the rules.
Exactly. It's like turning off the major, well-paved highways in your brain's road network and suddenly opening up all the smaller, less traveled, winding country roads and hidden paths.
Mm-hmm.
This generative freedom allows for the creation of actions, scenarios, and narratives that go way beyond everyday reality. It facilitates the testing of new, maybe more adaptive predictions and solutions in the completely safe space of the dream world, unbound by the usual strict rules of logic and physical reality.
So this less constrained, more flexible cognitive playground enables the dream to explore novel, perhaps creative solutions to deep-seated conflicts or unresolved issues. It allows for a dynamic reorganization of our internal models, potentially leading to new insights when we wake up.
Yeah. This capacity for flexible simulation seems like a crucial mechanism for psychological adaptation and growth. It really shows the brain's amazing capacity for internal problem solving.
Hmm. Okay, so moving now from our nightly dreams to other altered states of consciousness,
Yeah.
we find some truly striking and increasingly recognized parallels, particularly with psychedelic states.
Yeah, the comparison is becoming quite central in consciousness research.
In recent years, the resurgence of research into psychedelics has brought that idea of primary process thinking, that associative, non-rational style we talked about with Freud, powerfully back into academic focus.
Mm-hmm.
Studies are showing that psychedelics, like psilocybin from magic mushrooms or LSD, seem to actively disrupt the brain's normal top-down predictions and induce a state of consciousness that shares remarkable similarities with dreaming. It's an incredibly exciting area, offering a unique lens to study consciousness itself. There's pioneering work by scientists like Robin Carhart Harris and his colleagues,
Right, I've heard his name.
suggesting that psychedelics profoundly disrupt neural activity in that default mode network, the DMN, which we link to the ego and sense of self. This disruption leads to, as they put it, less constrained cognitions and higher entropy neural dynamics.
Higher entropy, meaning more disordered, more chaotic.
More disordered, yes, but maybe also more flexible, less rigid, a more free-flowing brain state. They've summarized this phenomenon really elegantly with the Rebus formulation:
Previous, what does that stand for?
relaxed beliefs under psychedelics.
Ah, relaxed beliefs under psychedelics. Okay, let's unpack that a bit more because that sounds like a really powerful idea, connecting back to the predictive processing model.
It connects beautifully. The idea is that in these psychedelic states, those high-level priors, remember, the brain's deeply held beliefs and expectations about what reality is and how it works.
Yeah, the core assumptions.
They become significantly de-emphasized. Their precision weighting is reduced. It's like the brain turns down the volume or the certainty on those ingrained beliefs that normally anchor our perception of reality.
So the usual framework gets loosened.
Exactly. And this allows for a much broader range of lower-level activity, maybe previously suppressed sensory information or unusual associations, to surface and be experienced. This leads to the distinct, often bizarre, sometimes intensely meaningful phenomenology of the psychedelic experience. Your brain starts perceiving, connecting, and interpreting things in ways it normally wouldn't, free from its usual rigid structures.
Okay, let me try another analogy. If your waking brain is like that highly structured, organized library with strict rules for accessing books and everything neatly categorized,
Well-ordered system.
the psychedelic brain is maybe like that library after a playful but pretty powerful earthquake.
Yeah.
The books are all still there, the information is still present, But the usual categorizations, the strict rules of access, the established pathways between different sections, they're all relaxed, temporarily suspended. And this allows for surprising, novel, often deeply insightful connections to be made between different ideas, different books, connections that would normally be impossible in the rigidly structured waking mind.
That's a great analogy. It captures that sense of loosened constraints and novel connections emerging from the existing material.
What's truly striking and offers huge potential for understanding the mind is just how much overlap there is between the subjective experience of dreaming and a psychedelic state. They share so many remarkable common features.
They really do.
Take perception, for example. Both states often involve incredibly vivid, often visual, imaginary changes. Things look different or you see things that aren't there. There's often a strong sense of bizarreness, strangeness, and pronounced symbol formation where ordinary things take on deep personal meanings.
Absolutely. And for affectivity, the emotional experience. There's often strong activation of emotional memories and feelings, both positive and negative, in both states.
Yeah, intense emotions.
Definitely. This includes digging up intense fear memories, much like in nightmares, or what people call challenging experiences or bad trips in the psychedelic context. The emotional intensity can be profound, deeply moving, bringing buried feelings right to the surface in both dreaming and psychedelic states.
And what about thinking, cognition?
Well, both states typically show a distinct decrease in logical, linear reasoning and a significant increase in associative, often symbolic reasoning. There's a definite shift towards bizarre, symbolic, metaphorical thinking, which, interestingly, often leads to moments people describe as deep insightfulness.
Ah, the aha moment.
Exactly. All classic hallmarks of that primary process thinking we talked about earlier. It's fundamentally a different mode of processing information, more flexible, less constrained by logic.
And even the sense of self can change dramatically, right?
Hugely. People in both states often report experiences described as disintegration of the narrative self, or even the embodied self, sometimes called non-dual awareness or self-unbinding. Meaning the usual boundaries of the self, our sense of being a separate individual, can feel less defined, more permeable, allowing for a broader, more interconnected, sometimes even oceanic sense of being.
Wow. Okay, so lots of deep similarities.
Yeah.
There must be differences, too.
Oh, absolutely. It's important to note the distinctions. The most obvious one is external stimuli. In dreams, there's an almost complete lack of external sensory input. The experience is largely internally generated.
Right, sealed off.
Whereas in psychedelic states, external stimuli, sight, sounds, touch can still have a substantial influence, often shaping the experience quite profoundly. Although in clinical settings, they often minimize this with eye shades and quiet rooms to encourage focus inward.
Okay, what else?
Another big difference is motor control. In dreams, we generally have that lack of motor control, REM sleep paralysis, thankfully. We can't physically act out our dreams. In psychedelic states, however, motor control is mostly preserved. People can still move, speak, interact with their environment, even if their perception of that environment is totally altered.
Right, you can walk around on psychedelics. You can't usually walk around in a dream.
Exactly. And one more fascinating distinction, which is really critical. The psychedelic state is often considered closer to lucid dreams than regular dreams.
Lucid dreams where you know you're dreaming.
Yes, because in psychedelic experiences, metacognition, your awareness of your own thought processes, along with reality monitoring, telling what's real, and memory functions, are largely preserved, much more so than in typical non-lucid dreams.
So you're more aware in a psychedelic state, generally?
Generally, yes.
Huh.
You often know you've taken a substance. You can reflect on the experience as it's happening. In fact, in lucid dreams, people can sometimes even communicate in real time using prearranged eye movements, which is an amazing tool for researchers.
Wow. Okay. So despite these key differences, especially around sensory input and motor control, the overall feeling is that the phenomenological similarities, particularly in the visual, emotional, and cognitive realms, far outweigh the differences.
That's the growing consensus, yes. It makes psychedelics a uniquely promising kind of lab model for understanding and exploring these elusive, dreamlike states of consciousness. It's a powerful window into how our brains construct reality, both waking and dreaming.
Okay, so given these striking similarities, these deep connections, researchers are now proposing some really exciting future directions, using psychedelics as this powerful window into the dreamlike state.
Yeah, leveraging these tools to understand fundamental processes.
One major proposition is for enhanced measurement, better ways to study these states systematically.
Right. Researchers are suggesting using standardized, rigorous tools like the Zurich Dream Process Coding System, the ZDPCS.
Okay, what does that do?
It's basically a systematic, validated method to codify and analyze the manifest content of dreams, the actual dream reports. The idea is to apply this same system to investigate the formal structure of experience across regular dreaming, normal waking, and those pharmacologically induced dreamlike states from psychedelics.
Ah, so you can compare apples to apples, sort of.
Exactly. It would allow for much more rigorous, objective, comparable data collection across these different states. That could lead to much deeper insights into their shared and distinct underlying mechanisms.
Okay, that makes sense. What's another direction?
A second incredibly promising area is therapeutic crossover.
Meaning using insights from one area to help in the other.
Precisely. The idea is that insights and techniques from psychodynamic dream work like Freud's free association, understanding symbolization, could be incredibly relevant and useful for the emerging field of psychedelic-assisted therapy.
Oh, so
Well, those established therapeutic techniques might help patients navigate, trace, reconstruct, and ultimately reconcile those repressed priors or conflictual complexes that often surface so powerfully during a psychedelic experience.
so using dream analysis tools to help process the psychedelic journey.
Exactly. It's about using methods specifically designed for understanding the symbolic language of the unconscious to help individuals make sense of and integrate the profound, often raw emotional material and insights that emerge during a psychedelic session. This could potentially lead to deeper healing and lasting change.
That sounds really promising. What else?
Then there's the exciting area of neuroimaging applications, applying brain scanning techniques across states.
Like fMRI.
Yeah, functional neuroimaging like fMRI, EEG, MEG-RETAMES, techniques currently being used in psychedelic research could be directly applied to study different sleep stages, REM versus non-REM, and different dream conditions like regular versus lucid dreaming.
So scanning brains while people are dreaming or in psychedelic states.
Essentially, yes. This cross-application could really illuminate the precise neurobiological mechanisms of dream formation. It would allow us to rigorously test specific aspects of the predictive processing model in detail, actually observing the brain activity associated with these different states of consciousness.
Okay, and there was one more direction mentioned, something about people who can't dream.
Yes, this raises that important question. What happens when you lose the ability to dream? The fourth proposition involves using lesion models.
Studying people with specific brain damage.
Exactly. By studying patients who have lost the ability to dream due to specific brain damage, researchers can potentially shed invaluable light on the fundamental biological and evolutionary functions of dreaming. It's like removing a part of a machine to figure out what it does.
Is this actually being done?
Yes, there's an ongoing, very significant trial called Biological Functions of Dreaming, or BFD trial. You can find it on clinical trial registries, NCT 047499992. This trial is specifically investigating patients who have, tragically, lost the ability to dream due to very specific brain lesions, for example, damage in a region called the temporoparietal junction, maybe from a stroke.
But crucially, they still have REM sleep.
That's the key part. These patients still have normal REM sleep phases. Their brains are physically entering the state associated with dreaming, but they have no conscious dream recall. They report that they just don't dream anymore.
Wow. So what is this trial hoping to find?
Well, it aims to empirically test some of Freud's original fundamental hypotheses about dreaming's function. Specifically, they're investigating, does dreaming serve to maintain sleep by somehow fulfilling those wish-laden impulses hallucinatory, preventing us from waking up due to psychological distress?
The guardian of sleep idea?
Exactly. And also, does dreaming influence the consolidation of emotional memory, or non-declarative memory, like skills and habits? The researchers hypothesize that these patients, the ones who can't dream despite having REM sleep, will actually experience poorer sleep quality, maybe more awakenings due to unresolved emotional stuff, and impaired memory consolidation.
So if they find that, it would be strong evidence for the function of dreaming.
Precisely. It would provide powerful empirical evidence for the vital roles dreaming plays in our overall mental and emotional lives. Hashtag check, hag outro, Nate.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us? As dreamers, as curious minds trying to understand ourselves, we've covered a truly immense amount of ground today.
We really have a whirlwind tour.
A grand tour of dream theories spanning over a century of really profound thinking. We started way back with Sigmund Freud, diving into his revolutionary idea that dreams aren't random, but profoundly meaningful wish fulfillments.
Carefully disguised by that intricate dream work. into the manifest content we remember.
Right, to protect us from our powerful, latent, unconscious desires. And we saw how his method of free association is still a powerful tool for trying to uncover those hidden meanings.
Then we leaped forward into the modern era, exploring the fascinating predictive processing model, understanding your brain as this brilliant, tireless prediction engine, constantly trying to minimize error and make sense of the world.
Yeah, and we saw how that incredible process shifts during sleep, relying more on our internal, higher-level expectations to spontaneously create our unique dreamscape, like an internal virtual reality generator.
That framework really helps us see dreams as an active, adaptive, maybe even crucial function of the brain, not just background noise.
And we connected these powerful ideas through those concepts of repressed priors and conflictual complexes.
Right. Those deeply rooted, unresolved emotional needs, those old, maybe maladaptive patterns that our dreams seem to tirelessly attempt to work through in their unique primary process style, especially when our usual waking defenses are lowered.
It really does sound like your brain's nightly therapy session, doesn't it? A space for internal self-repair.
It's a compelling perspective. And finally, we explore that surprising, almost uncanny convergence between dreaming and psychedelic experiences.
Yeah, revealing how both states can potentially open up these unique pathways to the unconscious by temporarily relaxing the brain's usual top-down controls, its rigid beliefs.
And that striking parallel offers incredible new avenues for research, for understanding consciousness itself, and potentially for self-discovery and even therapeutic intervention down the line.
It really is a testament to the brain's incredible capacity for internal simulation, for self-organization, constantly striving for balance and understanding.
Our understanding of dreams has truly evolved dramatically, hasn't it? From being seen as just a mysterious, often dismissed nightly event, to being recognized as a crucial, deeply insightful window into the complex workings of our own minds.
So the next time you wake up from a dream, maybe a particularly vivid one or a strange one or even an unsettling one, just take a moment. Remember the incredible, potentially purposeful work your brain might have been doing while you slept.
Yeah. Consider how your own daily predictions, maybe your unmet emotional needs, or even surprising moments of insight or creativity you have, might be directly connected to this unseen, vital work your mind undertakes each and every night.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it, that our inner world is constantly active, constantly striving for balance, even when we're supposedly at rest, working tirelessly to integrate our experiences and help us adapt to life's challenges.
Definitely something to reflect on.
So for you, our listener, here's a final reflective question to mull over, maybe tonight. Given everything we've discussed today about how the brain processes unresolved issues in dreams, what prediction errors or what conflictual complexes might your dreams be trying to work through tonight, quietly in the background, to help you make sense of your world?